Hello, buddy. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Friday, um, April the 11th, 2025. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week. You're all getting ready and excited for the weekend. If you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, of course, we're going to wait a few minutes, give people a chance to show up. Hopefully, everybody's having a good time this week. Um, as of course, now we're like a week away from Easter, from what I was just told earlier. Be a week away this Sunday. Um, Before, of course, I do get on tap. Before I do get onto the subject matter. A friendly reminder, of course, as always, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will answer the questions to the best of my ability. And we all right. La 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 la. Let's see now. All right, so now we're getting close to the 3 minute mark. So here's what's on tap for tonight. I have three articles I'm going to go over, all from Bounding into Comics. Of course, the first one being kind of a follow up story to what we've been. The first two are going to be more or less follow up stories to story we've kind of been following, and you know um, how Marvel Comics basically um, keeps ignoring the fans on certain things. Marvel Comics disappoints yet again, kicks off new Amazing Spider-Man run with a near exact repeat of Brand New Day's opening scene. Let's see. Then, counter to the arguments that they've been making, saying why they won't do it, Ultimate Spider-Man tops March 2025 graphic novel sales. Amazing Spider-Man, yet again, fails to break top 20. So, I mean, that's evidence enough that should tell you that maybe, just maybe, you should start giving people what they want. But we'll get more into those articles. And then the last article we're going to be looking at is Power Rangers star Walter Emmanuel Jones denies racism behind his Black Ranger casting. For those of you who may not remember, Walter Emmanuel Jones was the first guy to portray the Black Ranger back in the early '90s, the original Power Ranger series. So that's what we got for you there, and then of course we'll have the wrestling wrap up. We'll get caught up on last night's Impact and Ring of Honor, as well as looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown. Get y'all, and look ahead to tomorrow's Collision. Um, and of course, you know, AEW continues to come off of its Dynasty pay per view. Just looking at some of the stuff happening there, as well as WWE continue to march towards WrestleMania. Some news coming out from there. So So, and then, of course, we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. Again, a friendly reminder, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With all that being said now, let's go ahead and get to the articles. Let's get into the material here. So, Marvel Comics disappoints yet again. Kicks off new Amazing Spider-Man run with near exact repeat of Brand New Day's opening scene. Article by Spencer McCulley, published back on April 9th, which was, of course, this past Wednesday, 2025. So, let's see what's going on here. In yet further proof that nobody hates Peter Parker more than Marvel Comics, the first issue of the core Amazing Spider-Man series, newest volume, begins not with the exploration of, quote, bold new horizons, unquote, as previously promised, but rather a near identical retread of the opening scene of the hero's Brand New Day era. Featuring words by Spider-Man Deadpool Volume 1 writer Joe Kelly, and art from Blood Hunt Volume 1, line art, colorist duo Pepe Larraz and Marte Garcia. The debut issue of Amazing Spider-Man Volume 7 finds the wall crawler yet again unemployed, down on his luck, and struggling to make ends meet thanks to the ever-present demands of his superhero responsibilities. To this end, realizing that he needs to change his circumstances, Peter hits the streets and manages to arrange a number of job interviews, all of which happen to be in person. Unfortunately for Peter, rather than any level of success, his conversations, meetings all play out in generally the same way. After receiving praise for his qualifications, he is then pressed as to his spotty work history. Following a brief internal cutaway to his superheroics, Peter ultimately fails to give a satisfactory explanation for his less than stellar resume, which ultimately leads to him being rejected and ending the day still jobless. And if that sounds familiar, dear reader, this is not just because this opening setup is essentially the same. In smaller quotes, Peter struggles to juggle his personal and spider life, one that Marvel Comics always defaults to when they relaunch, reboot, or reimagine him. It's also because this is almost a shot-for-shot retread of a scene that played out 17 years earlier in Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1, number 546, otherwise known as the very first issue of the hero's post, in smaller quote, selling his marriage to Mephisto, on smaller quote, life. Hmm. Hmm. Hey, Metal. Thanks for popping in. Anyways, feel free to comment and or ask questions if anything grabs your attention here. Hmm. Coming to readers from then new series writer Dan Slott, penciler Steve McNiven, inker Dexter Vines, and colorist Maury Hollowell. The issue first finds Peter waking up in his childhood bedroom at Aunt May's house, his stay necessitated by the fact that he has neither the savings nor the, in small quotes, current employment status to afford his own place. Aware that his current situation is, quote unquote, just sad, Peter spends the morning scouring the, in small quotes, classified section of the Daily Bugle and proceeding to schedule the same day interviews for 3 positions that speak to his specific skill sets: a high school science teacher, a fashion photographer, and a research assistant at an advanced technology lab. Unfortunately for Peter, not only does his flaky and unprofessional reputation precede him, but when faced with the observation that he has not done any notable science work since his time in high school, and the subsequent question of, quote, what have you been doing all this time, unquote, he not only finds himself briefly reflecting on his history as Spider-Man, but is also only able to explain his time in the tides away as, quote, this and that, which of course is not, which is not a, anyways, this is not, which is not a proper answer, obviously. Um, In the interest of fairness, it should be noted that due to the, quote, ever ongoing return nature of the Western industry's approach to comics, most superhero books, especially those from the big two, uh, small quote, unsmall quote, are prone to occasionally stepping on the toes of even outright retreading old stories, characters, and interactions. I'm going to go off camera here for a moment. I'm going to put some music on for a moment. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. So let's get back to the article here then. All right. However, unlike in Spider-Man Volume 1, Volume 7, Number 1, said retrading is usually not this blatant, with most instances usually being different enough thanks to occurring at different time periods or during different events than the original. Now, this is all not to say that Kelly directly plagiarized Slott's work. Far from it. As Kelly's writing history proves, he's more than capable of doing his own writing. Rather, it's to point out the fact that thanks to Marvel's ongoing insistence that Peter can never ever mature past the exact spot, past this exact spot in his life, broke, unemployed, single, and struggling, they have all but officially run out of new and interesting ways to both explore his character and believably explain his inability to move forward. For those interested in seeing yet another refresh of the web slinger's life, Amazing Spider-Man Volume 1 or Volume 7 Number 1 swings on the shelves today, April 9th. All right. Don't know if anybody is interested in the modern day garbage that's coming out, but there you go, folks. Hey, Fishozo. Alright. Friendly reminder, of course, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. All right, and here's another follow-up to this same situation here that we've been talking about. Ultimate Spider-Man tops March 2025 graphic novel sales. Amazing Spider-Man, yet again, fails to break top 20. So, in another example of what we're seeing with what people have been saying, how this constant retreading of keeping Peter in this one spot in his life, apparently, according to the sales numbers, is not working. But Braveheart thinks he knows better than his own customer base what they like. So go figure. Article by Spencer McCauley, published April 10th, which of course was yesterday. So let's get into this now. For proof that Marvel Comics' current run of Ultimate Spider-Man is resonating with far more readers than its mainline Amazing Spider-Man counterpart, look no further than the fact that while the former's trade paperback releases have again proven themselves as one of the best-selling books month to month, the collected editions of the latter have not found themselves in the running for that honor in a very, very long time. Per ICV2's recently released Top 20 Graphic Novels report for this past March, despite releasing more than halfway through the month on the 18th, the second volume of writer Jonathan Hickman and artist-colorist duo Marco Cicchetto and Matthew Wilson's Earth 6160 take on the wall crawler was still the number one selling Western trade paperback by units across the relevant 5-week period. And here they show you here. it's not so much comic book readers, but brand synergy. Every iteration of Spider-Man is in high school and doesn't get any further than that. Yeah, that's been the whole. You're exactly right there, Fisher. That's been the whole point everybody's been making. Okay, they seem to be the writers at Marvel seem to be stuck on this idea that they need to keep Peter in high school. They need to keep him in this one spot in his life rather than letting him like grow and mature. And with Ultimate Spider-Man, that's exactly what Hickman has done. Hickman, as a writer, has done. He's been, he's basically where in that particular book, as I understand it, Peter is married. If anything, he had, things are a little bit different because he got his power. He didn't get his powers in high school like in the original series. He got his powers like later in life, like more as an adult. High school, yeah. Coming in at second was the first Image Comics digital edition Invincible volumes. Undoubtedly, thanks um, to the premiere of its Amazon produced animated adaptation's third season the month prior, followed by the previous trade of Ultimate Spider-Man in third. So essentially, your top three, the number one is volume 2 of the Ultimate Spider-Man graphic novel series, and in number 3 is the first volume of the graphic novel. So, in parentheses here, and while any other time would likely see both regularly priced at $20, Ultimate Books also take home the top spots on the per dollar chart. The aforementioned um, Invincible season led to a run on the original comic book compendium releases. The first of which retail at $65, and the last for $40, which in turn boosted their respective sales charts. Notably, with its bronze medal finish in March 2025, the first Ultimate trade paperback has officially placed in the top 3 for monthly graphic novel sales ever since it first hit shelves in September 2024. And an impressive run of 8 months has not only posted manga level numbers, but also shows no signs of slowing down. Now, mind you, Braveheart keeps kind of dismissing this fact. I guess because he just doesn't want to acknowledge it for some reason. Again, thinking that he's right and the people who read the books are wrong. It's like he's trying to tell them what they like, and they're not having it. Hey, Natsuri. And Metal here. Let's see. Even as a kid, I preferred the stories about Peter's married life, but I'm not really interested in that alt world, Peter, because Peter's past is what makes me like his married life. Yeah, but I think Metal. I think what it is though is that I think people want to see it progress even more. I don't think. I don't think. I think what most fans want. They don't want him to be stuck in high school, but they also don't want him stuck in married life. They want to see a natural life progression there, where where um, where he's basically where you're seeing his life cycle. You're seeing him as a teenager struggling, and then eventually become the teacher, and get married and all that, and then eventually um, just and eventually getting on in his older years, maybe his kids taking over. I want to see it progress as well, but that's part of why I've checked out entirely. Ultimate Spider-Man doesn't solve this for me. Okay, yeah, I guess I get your point. Basically them just staying in certain on either end is not appealing to you, but my guess is there are a number of people who probably checked out anyways. I really like the Spider Girl stories back in the day with future Mayday Parker. All right, that would be interesting too. And I know in the DCAU, of course, with the Batman Beyond stories, those were pretty cool too. That's DC, mind you, but you know. Anyways, back to the article here. Let's see. On the other hand, things are going quite the opposite way on Earth 616. While recent history has seen various spider-related titles make occasional appearances on ICV2's graphic novels sales charts, such as Spider-Punk Battle of the Band Volume 1, placing 10th overall by units. The whole of 2023, the last time a trade paperback of the main Peter Parker-led Amazing series placed in even the top 20, was October 2022, when the first volume of Zeb Wells and John Romita Jr.'s now infamous run took 11th in overall numbers sold. Admittingly, due to ICV2 locking their extended sales chart behind a premium subscription, it's unknown by this article's author where, if at all, any other volumes of Amazing Spider-Man have happened to place in recent years. And I'm going to need to go off camera here again for a moment. I will be right back. I'll put some music on here. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, let's see. Okay. I did read that already. Okay. Um. All right. So back to the article here. But even assuming that they performed held relatively consistent with the last extended sales report from the now defunct Diamond Comics in April 2022, wherein the third volume of the Ben Riley led Beyond arc came in 49th in units and 69th in dollar. Amazing is still getting absolutely trounced every month in trade paperback sales by Ultimate. And though the bitter truth of the ongoing spider discourse is that Amazing has consistently been one of Marvel Comics' bestsellers ever since the One More Day disaster, that Ultimate continues to sell so well in collected form, while Amazing does not reveal how the former, with its delivering on the fan demand for a married Peter and MJ, and is just generally exceptional writing, offers more appeal to every possible demographic, even those readers who may have abandoned the publisher altogether, and the latter offers to the most die-hard comic book aficionados. So, in parentheses here, and let's be frank, the fact that every issue of Amazing receives a handful of variant covers as well as speculators leaving on each, in smaller quotes, big issue advertised by Marvel likely plays a not insignificant role in the series sales. Unparentheses. For those interested in one of the wall crawler's best books in ages, the second trade paperback of Ultimate Spider-Man is on sale now. Mm-hmm. So, as we get ready to move on to, of course, the next article here, the last article we're going to go over tonight, another one that kind of caught my attention, kind of going towards the whole woke baloney that we've been talking about the last few years here. Here's one that seems like Power Ranger star Walter Emmanuel Jones denies racism behind his Black Ranger casting. Quote, calling it a mistake, in smaller quotes, would dismiss the impact it had on countless people, unquote. Article by Spencer McCauley published earlier today. All right, so here we go. Rather than looking at his Black Ranger casting as a case of, smaller quotes, unconscious racism, unsmaller quote, Mighty Morphin Power Ranger star Walter Emmanuel Jones. Now, the reason he had to, of course, use his full name, because I'm sure there have been a few guys with the name Walter Jones who are been actors. So, says that he views his time tuned into the Morphin grid as nothing less than, quote unquote, an honor. This latest round of Power Rangers related discourse kicked off on April 8th, courtesy of former series writer and Saba, otherwise known as Tommy's White Ranger era talking Tiger Saber, voice actor Tony Oliver. Appearing as a featured speaker on the newest episode of Investigation Discovery, in small quotes, underbelly of the entertainment industry, unsmall quote, docuseries Hollywood Demons, itself aptly named Dark Side of the Power Rangers, Oliver lamented how, despite the fact that, quote, none of us, in brackets there, were thinking stereotypes, unquote, when casting Jones as Zach Taylor and the late Dewey Trung as Trini Kwan, the series was able to run for a full 2 seasons without anyone calling out the fact that quote, the black character was the Black Ranger and the Asian character was the Yellow Ranger. Well, I know I watched some of the show. I never even really thought too much about that, if at all. And I don't know if any of you guys had really thought about, if you'd ever watched the first incarnation of Power Rangers, if you ever thought about that, whether whether it even made any difference to you that the Black Ranger happened to be black and the Yellow Ranger happened to be Asian. I got an article for you to personally check out after the stream is over. I put up a sample for a new project. Let's see. Dreamscape. Excuse me. I've heard people make fun of that casting choice, but it was years after Mighty Morphin had ended. Yeah, I mean, I almost get the impression that I don't think nobody really thought too much about it or even really cared. The only people who would seem to care about that are probably the wokies of today. So, huh. All right. So, anyways, getting back to the article. Excuse me once more, guys. I'm sorry. I need to step away from the computer one more time here. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, um, let's get back to the article here. Last article of the night, of course. Let's see. Quote, my assistant pointed out in a meeting one day, unquote, said the Green Ranger's namesake of the moment. He realized the connection. Quote, it was such a mistake, unquote. However, while Oliver seems to be fermenting in guilt over this casting decision, which, speaking frankly, every person who ever watched or even know of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers had long laughed off as one of those, quote, or smaller quotes, oh wow, how did no one catch that? Funny, funny coincidences. Jones himself could not disagree more with this retroactive read of his arguably most famous role. Taking to his personal Instagram account on April 10th, Jones shared a number of headlines from various outlets covering Oliver's quote-unquote mistake admission and responded, quote, incredible how many media outlets picked this up. However, while some choose to seek out the negative, I've always believed in focusing on the positive. Quote, I understand the impulse to address what might be seen as cultural insensitivity, but calling it a quote unquote mistake would dismiss the impact it had on countless people around the world who found inspiration and representation in TV's first black superhero, morphin into none other than the Black Power Ranger. Unquote, he proudly exclaimed. Quote, it wasn't a mistake, it was a milestone. It was an honor. Hmm. In providing evidence that his opinion was not a knee jerk one, but rather one he had held for a long while, Jones pointed to a March appearance he made on famed voice actor Jim Cummings' Tuned In with Jim Cummings podcast, where he discussed this very topic. Power Rangers racial prejudice. I mean, could you also argue then that okay, here, to extend it out a little bit, would that mean that making Amy Jo Johnson the Pink Ranger, would that come off as sexist then? Because pink's the color of girls. You know, why don't we throw that in there too, right? hmm. All right. So, anyways, as we continue on here, quote, I found it to be quite powerful, unquote. The actor said of his time behind the controls of the Mastodon Dinosaur. Quote, cause here I am, a young black kid from Detroit, predominantly a black city, and the time that I grew up in was time where there was James Brown saying loud, quote, "I'm black and I'm proud," unquote. So it's like there was a shift from being ashamed of being black to people being very proud of being black. And growing up in a black city and then becoming a black superhero in a black suit, I was like, in small quotes, "Let's go. This is perfect for me." Quote, "The idea of me being a black suit never bothered me," unquote. He added, quote, "In fact, I was happy about it. When I saw it, I was like, in small quotes, I want this one," on small quote. And they were like, in small quotes, "That's yours." It's kind of cool to see Walter's reaction to all this. It's cool to see, you know, seeing a black man not play into all this, you know, racist victimhood kind of garbage. You know, you know, he empowered himself with this. That's a good thing. Oh, there we go with that. So there's the end of that article, of course. All right. So with that being said, of course, we'll now share the screen there. Let's see. And Metal, you've added a quote here. Let's see what you had to say on that. To be fair, to the Pink Ranger, she was already a girl in Super Sentai. The only one in that series. Yellow Ranger was a guy. Notice how there is no skirt. Uh, yeah. Okay. Well, that didn't cross my mind either. But well, good eye there. Good eye there, Metal. Didn't even think about that, but it's kind of funny how in particular they make the whole big deal about Yellow Ranger, casting the Yellow Ranger with an Asian actress when the series originally was all Asians, all Japanese people. So it's like this whole thing is kind of like Yellow Ranger was only female to add diversity. Let's see. I used to be really, really into Power Rangers and Super Sentai up until Dino Thunder ended. All right. Yeah, I don't think I even got that far. I think I may have got through the first couple of series and lost interest myself. But also, nobody cared about the races of the civilian alts of the Rangers. Yeah, that's the point I was making earlier too, Fishozo. I was making that same point earlier when we were talking about it. I don't really think anybody really cared, about that. You know, People now care because it's supposedly the, oh my God, we got to be ashamed of ourselves because we didn't pick that up. It's like, or else we won't be cool anymore. I actually just rewatched the old Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie on a whim a couple months back. All right. Oh, yeah. Anyways. Well, with that, I'm going to now get ready to move on to the wrestling wrap up. Let's see. The one with Ivan Ooze. As I said, I'm going to go ahead and get going on the wrestling wrap. We're going to move on to that here. Yes, Fizz. As bad as that movie can be at times, Ivan Ooze is one of the best villains in movie history. He is too good for that film, honestly. Anyways. All right, so now we're gonna go back to last night. Take a look back at, of course, Ring of Honor and TNA Impact, as of course with Ring of Honor, particularly with Chris Jericho just losing the Ring of Honor World Title to Bandito on Dynasty. And the reason a reason that AEW was keeping the title on him, because they thought it would help them get a new TV deal or whatever, and it just wasn't panning out that way. But with that being said, let's take a look at what all's happened on last night's Ring of Honor television. So Johnny TV and M&M Collection in a 6-man tag match, defeated the team of Drake Daniels, Jordan Cross, and Ryan Matthews. Marina Shafir defeated Nikki X in a singles match. In a match leading up to his upcoming New Japan strong open weight title shot tonight, Tomohiro Ishii defeated Preston Vance of the Frat House. In a non-title 6-man tag match, Ring of Honor World 6-man tag champions Dustin Rhodes and the Von Erich brothers, Marshall and Ross Von Erich, defeated the 3-man team of Davey Bang and Silence is Forever, Dominic Garmini and Kevin Koo. And in a Ring of Honor World Title Proving Ground match, Bandito defeated Jay Lethal to keep Jay Lethal from being able to challenge for the title in the immediate future. Now, of course, Ring of Honor in a few weeks here will be having its Supercard of Honor event coming up on May 2nd in Atlantic City, in which they're probably getting ready to work their way towards. His plan was to enslave the adults to reconstruct his battle robots. Anyways, that's all the news from Ring of Honor at this point. Now looking back to last night's Impact. On last night's Impact, Ace Austin defeated Mustafa Ali via DQ in a singles match. In a non-title match, Cody Deaner and Moose, I guess, went to 2 minutes there, which set up a TNA X Division title match, in which Moose defeated Deaner in 27 seconds. The System's Brian Myers and JDC defeated the Rascals Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz in a tag team match. And in the first of the tournament three-way matches for the newly christened TNA International title, AJ Francis defeated Mance Warner and Sami Callihan. Leon Slater defeated Ryan Nemeth, getting some revenge on him for Matt Hardy after the Nemeth's attack on Matt Hardy. Main event saw Eddie Edwards defeat Steve Maclin in 8 minutes. So now, looking ahead to tonight's SmackDown, as they continue the build up towards WrestleMania. See what they'll have on tap for tonight's Friday night SmackDown from Seattle, Washington, from the Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, Washington, in a women's tag team number one contendership gauntlet match. So this will basically determine Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez's opponents at WrestleMania, I believe. You'll have, of course, Bayley and Lyra Valkyria, who just faced off against each other for the Women's Intercontinental title this past Monday. Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, B-Fab and Michin, Maxine Dupree and Natalia, the secret Hervis of Alba Fire and Piper Niven, and Ray Fenix will continue his action as he will be taking on Berto of El Legado de Fantasma. So that's all what's going down on tonight's SmackDown. As now we look ahead to tomorrow night's Collision as soon as I find it, of course. As in the continuation of the follow-up coming off of the Dynasty pay-per-view, on tomorrow night's Collision from the Mass Mutual Center in Springfield, Massachusetts, Anthony Bowens, coming off of his victory over Max Caster at Dynasty, will be taking on Blake Christian. In the continuation of the Owen Hart Foundation tournaments, where the winner of the tournaments will be getting the women will be getting a women's world title shot at All In, while the men will be getting a world title shot at All In. The finals, of course, of the Owen Hart tournament will be taking place at Double or Nothing on May 25th. You'll have 2 women's quarterfinal matches on tomorrow night's Collision. Former AEW World Women's Champion Jamie Hayter takes on former Ring of Honor World Television Champion Billie Starkz. In the other women's quarterfinal match, current Ring of Honor World Champion Athena takes on Harley Cameron. And in the men's quarterfinal match on the night, you have current never open weight champion Konosuke Takeshita taking on the Hounds of Hell Brody King. So that's all I got for you on the wrestling wrap up there. So now what we'll do is we'll get ready to move on, and with today being Friday, April the 11th, 2025. Let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. So let's see now. 2001. 1955. And 2000. All right. 2001, 1955. So, all right. So, I have to go now. All right. Well, hopefully, we'll see you around on Sunday. All right. So, anyways, first off, um, heading back 70 years ago today, on this date, 70 years ago today, the Chilly Willy short, the on this date 55 years ago today, The Legend of Rockabye Point, which was a 1955 Chilly Willy cartoon directed by Tex Avery, produced by Walter Lantz, that was presented on episode 3 of the new Woody Woodpecker show as a classic Chilly cartoon. Premiered on this date back 70 years ago today. So 70 years ago today, the Chilly Willy cartoon, The Legend of Rockabye Point, produced by Walter Lantz Productions on the new Woody Woodpecker show, premiered on this date back in 1955. Well, actually, I think it probably originally, because I think the new Woody Woodpecker show actually didn't debut until 1957. So I'm thinking it was more likely that that it I believe it was more likely that it premiered in movie theaters, then was presented on the new Woody Woodpecker show later. So, anyways, moving ahead to the year 2000 now, as on this date in the year 2000, this date in the year 2000, on April 11th, 2000, how filmmakers, Boys B premiered on Japanese television on this date back in 2000. So 25 years ago today, the how filmmaker anime Boys B initially premiered on Japanese television on Wow Wow Network on this date 25 years ago. And finally, on this date in the year 2001, 24 years ago today, on this date 24 years ago today, the 590th issue of Batman, Volume 1 of Batman, went on sale on this date back in 2001, sold for $2.25, 32 pages. The story was titled, so it was part of the Close Before Striking Act story arc. It was Act 3, written by Brian K. Vaughan, penciled by Scott McDaniel. Carl C. Story did the inking. The lettering was done by John Costanza, and Roberta Tews did the coloring. So, anyways, with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hope you all enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here on Sunday, as my co-host this week will be Apex from Apex Comics. We'll be looking at comics that went on sale back in May of 1940 from Metal. From May of 1940, we'll be looking at comics that went on sale from Columbia Comics, or Columbus Comics, We'll be looking at Big Shot, Volume 1, Issue 3. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here on Sunday. Bye.